you ready to make technology work for you? Tune in to Act on Tech, the podcast where we break down the latest tech trends and show you how to boost your productivity at home and in your business. So, subscribe to Act on Tech today and visit alexcustomtech.com to see how we can take your business to the next level. That's Act on Tech, your guide to smarter tech for a smarter business. Alex Custom Tech, IT means integrity and trust.
Hello, hi, welcome to Act on Tech, where we talk all things technology. I am Alex of Alex Custom Tech, and today's topic is going to be endpoint security, especially how to protect laptops, phones, tablets, desktop, and power your business. Okay, so we're going to define these terms, of course, like we normally do on this podcast. I'm gonna like give you a little behind the scenes or technical jargon, like what they mean. So when we talk about endpoints, it used to be your desktop, right? But now it's expanded to pretty much your phone, your hard drive that you take with you on the road, your tablets, because again, a lot of people have a hybrid work situation where they're not in one location, they're on the road, they're doing sales calls, or they're going to clients or whatever, they're taking these devices with you kind of phones home. Those are endpoint devices. So we're trying to create a situation where we are protecting those devices. So you're not always working in a particular location. Now you have like remote work, whether it be home or in the field. Okay, so endpoint security used to mean antivirus, pretty much. It used to be like you put a software on your computer and hopefully you keep it up to date and it will like search out what's questionable and it will block it, right? But that's no longer the case. It's not enough anymore. We have a hybrid work environment. So your team is logging in from multiple devices from different locations and networks. And every one of those endpoint devices, your phone, tablet, laptop, USB drives, all those are vulnerable for exploitation. Okay? So you have to protect them. So today we're going to break down the endpoint device security, what it really means in today's networking IT environment, and why it matters and why you need to start taking this seriously. Now, I'm not going to do the whole wag the finger and, thing like I did in the last two podcasts. I think I had to do that. This one is also important too, but I think you get the gist of where I'm going with this from the last two podcasts when I talk about the security situation, like when I talk about what mistakes businesses are making as far as security and how a MSP should handle its security going, and what you should look for from an MSP. I already did those two podcasts, which was not comfortable for me because I felt like I was like dictatorial in how I approached it, but I think the topic required that. But this is when I'm going to kind of pull back a little bit. Okay, so let's define our terms, right? So endpoint is any device that connects to your network, i.e. laptop, desktop, smartphones, tablets, even a printer, or any IoT devices in your business, security cameras, key entry, anything that's used that's connected to the network is an endpoint device, right? And you want to make sure that all those devices are secure. When we talk about zero trust network, it's kind of like the continuation of that, right? So endpoint security is a strategy and tool that protect these devices. So what you're gonna put additional as a plan or strategy or software or hardware, whatever it is that you're gonna put in your network to protect these devices. And EDR EDR. We kind of browsed over that in a couple of podcasts before. We're gonna kind of like break that down now. Is endpoint detection and response. So it's an advanced security software that monitors, detects, and responds to threats. So it is an antivirus protection, but like Windows have one called Windows Defender. It does more than just scan for antiviruses. Okay, I'm gonna if I can kind of give you a synopsis about it, I'm gonna do that later. Okay, so why endpoint security is now critical. Remote work means devices are not Remote work means devices are on home networks, public Wi-Fi, and even mobile hotspots. Now, home network, you can't. People who work from home, you might assign them a laptop. They go home with it. You don't know how their network is. You don't know who else is on their network. You don't know their family members, how they handle things. You don't know, how secure the network is. So you have to protect the device that you assign to them if they're going to work from home, right? Same thing with any other device, mobile device you give them or anything like that, right? And again, public Wi-Fi is not a thing. I remember speaking to somebody that I know that's kind of technically savvy, and I said to him, because he goes to camping grounds, he goes camping, and I asked him, because I'm interested in doing that. It's kind of one of my things that I want to do in the future. Like, I want to get a buy RV and go out into camping and stuff like that. And I was thinking, because one of my things I was thinking about doing was, I'm going to go camping, I'm going to set up some kind of a network and then give people Wi-Fi while I'm there camping. And I was saying to him, like, how is the Wi-Fi there at the campsite? And he's like, I don't go on public Wi-Fi's. I'm like, okay. Very smart move, because he just uses the AT&T or whatever his carrier is, and he uses that, because again, you have unlimited data, so that's not really a problem. But you can use public Wi-Fi if you have the things in place that you need to have in place, which is where your EDR comes in, right? Employees use personal device for work and vice versa. So you got some employees, you give them a laptop or a tablet, and they're logging into their own personal account on these devices, which could be vulnerable. So you want to kind of like prevent or minimize or control these scenarios. All right, a single compromised device can leak credential installed. You can install ransomware on it, and you can spread malware across the network. So again, one little loophole can cause a big problem later on. So you want to kind of like control all these devices. Common endpoint threats. Phishing emails. We talked about that before, right? Phishing emails that install malware, right? Unpatched software. Any software you want to actually do an audit, but again, we're going to talk about that later. Software that are not up to date, right? Because you got a software on your computer, whether it's critical, mission critical software, whatever, you want to have the latest update for your software. The IT guys should be focusing on this, but that's where the vulnerability comes in, right? Loss or stolen devices. That's another problem. You have one of your employees loses their devices. You want to make sure that if they lose it, it's still not going to be vulnerable. You can lock that down, right? Shadow IT is where people install stuff on the device that is not recommended, that you didn't authorize, you don't know about, right? Whatever, right? Those are kind of the things. So those are the terminologies, the common threats, really, that we're trying to prevent, if you will. Tools and strategy to secure endpoint devices. And here we go to the crux of it. Antivirus is not enough. We talked about that before. So you want to use a EDR. We're going to talk about this a little bit. Let's talk about what EDR is. We told you that definitely you want to have one of these, which is the endpoint detection and response software, right? So you want to use an EDR solution like Sentinel-1. Just write this down. Sentinel-1 is one, and CrowdStrike is another, and of course the wonderful Microsoft gave us Microsoft Defenders, okay, for businesses. Okay, you want to have these on your endpoint devices so that you can protect yourself, right? And EDR provides real-time monitoring, threat detection, and automatic isolation of infected devices. Slow it down, because if you have these things in place, when something does happen, it'll isolate that device from the rest of the network, protecting everything else, limiting the problem from spreading. Right? Patch management. Right? Keep operating system, browser, and software up to date. Very important. Again, these things we're talking about, the MSP will cover, but I want to kind of give you guys an idea of what's supposed to be happening behind the scenes with your MSP, is how you protect yourself if you're going to do it yourself. Of course, you can hire Alex Custom Tech or a company like mine to come in and manage these and take care of these devices. You have to worry about them, but these are things that's out there in the world. If you're going to have, again, some businesses, everybody's in the one location, it's a little bit easier to manage. But if you have a sales team, they're going out, you have people who work from home, there's those hybrid work environment is when this becomes a problem. And again, these are the solution. Again, not 100%, there's no real solution in life, there's only trade-offs, but this is how you address this problem, right? So like I said, patch management, use RMMs, which is what we would use here. We can install softwares on all these endpoint devices, and then we'll know on our end what's going on with each of us. We can go out and send out our team to go look at these or fix it or patch anything to get patched. Now, in my 9-to-5 job, I manage a lot of in the transportation industry. I manage a lot of, for instance, transportation. I work in the transportation industry, right? 9-to-5, and I manage their devices. So a lot of iPads that goes into these 18-wheelers that I manage, hundreds of them, right? And I get pinged, or I get emails, or I get warnings about any one of those trucks' iPad that's not working properly, right? And I can address it remotely, or the guy can bring it into me and say this is not working, I can fix it. But I have EDR running on all of these tablets, so that if they lose it or something happens, I'm not panicking because it's in place. So there's something that I do on a regular basis, right? So RMM for remote monitoring, right? And encryption. So encryption is kind of like we encrypt something, they don't know what the thing is, right? Encryption, when I encrypt a hard drive, BitLocker is on Windows, meaning that if they get a hold of the laptop, they can't get the information that's on the laptop because it's BitLock. They get damage the laptop, they can't do anything with it, right? If the person loses it or it's stolen, they can't do anything with it because it's BitLock. Or Mac have a version of it, it's called File Vault. If they don't have the password, they can't get anything. All right. Mobile device management. This is what I use in my 9-to-5 job. Is that MDM that manages all the iPads for the truckers, and then I can remote into each of them and do what I gotta do. Right. Smartphones, tablets, they use this tool, right, to control access, to wipe, if anything happened, wipe the device completely remotely, and so on. Now, some businesses don't issue mobile devices. They'll let people use their phone. They bring their own device. MDM works on those too. Okay. that's something you might want to consider. But if you're going to have them go out in the field with have access to your network, to your files, to your stuff, you want to have something on there protecting your network, right? We talked about access control, MFA, multiple factor authentication. We talk about that. Very important. You should have all your team and everybody using this stuff, right? Use credentials, only allow logins in trusted location and trusted devices. Talk about the zero trust network, right? Employee awareness. Here's the key. This is the weak link, I think, in my opinion, 9 times out of 10. I think the devices and everything works well, but if the people are not educated on how to do this or how to use this stuff or how to keep themselves safe, is where the problem comes in. They're the weak link. People are normally the weak link. So you want to keep a training montage going on and people in a culture of awareness so that they know that these things are not negotiable. Like they have to really, because safety start with them, security start with them, right? So you have to teach your team that. And I probably should be working on something as far as some kind of a blog or something like that so you guys can download and use it as a training thing. I should work on that. I think I'm gonna work on that, and I'm actually thinking out loud here on the podcast. But hold me to it. I'm gonna try to work on something in the future, and then give you guys a link and say, hey, here's a link to this thing where you can use as a training thing for you guys. All right, because I think this is important. I think it's kind of one of the problems I have too. Because a lot of times I get called for problems, and it's not really the device or the hardware that failed. It's an employee. Okay, so again, I think this is the main thing, really, in my opinion. Okay, so training for your employees, awareness, right? Teach them how to report a lost device or phishing attempt. When they see something, when they get an email that's kind of fishy, they need to not just ignore it. I say they know, okay, it's a phishing thing. Okay, I'm smart enough not to click on it, but they don't tell the manager, they don't tell their supervisor, they don't let the tech guys or the MSP that manages that network know about this, so they can say, oh, block it for everybody, not just them. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of like, it would be advantageous for us to really communicate and let us know what's going on, what are you seeing, what the devices are doing, what email is coming in that's kind of fishy, so we can figure out where did they get your information from? Was it the dark web? Was it somebody that answered in your organization, answered the email, or they got somebody else in the organization that got hacked? That's how they get your email address. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff, right? So that's awareness. And again, separate guest device from your internal business network. We'll talk about segmenting things. I talked about this in the previous podcast, and this is very important. And I give you an example about how my house network is set up, or I separate everything. In your business, you want to separate the guest network from the business network, and even in the business network, you want to separate the departments. You want to separate sales and accounting, and manufacturing, or whatever it is that you're doing. You want to separate each department in its own network, so in case something happens in sales, it doesn't spread throughout the whole thing, and you can stop it in sales and redo it. So that's kind of very important, and I think we should be thinking about that. Use VLANs. Again, recommend VLANs. Use VLANs to your IT guys. Again, and the thing about VLANs, for me, it's great because I can get one hardware, and then that one hardware could be divided up into virtual LANs, and I could do it. But again, I've been inside businesses that have server racks that have separate switches for each network, so that's still doable. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not acting like the traditional way, the old way of doing it doesn't work. It doesn't matter if you use VLANs or you use separate switches for each department. It doesn't matter, as long as you're doing it, right? As long as it's segmented, that's all I care about at the end of the day, right? It might be more costly on the energy side, but again, trade-offs, So the takeaway from this podcast, really, do a quick audit, right? Have your MSP do a quick audit. You do an audit, right? What devices are being used to access your data, right? desktop, laptop, phones, whatever, IoT devices, whatever you have in your network, do an audit, see what you have, right? Install EDR on mobile devices. On all your devices, all your endpoint devices, right? Make sure that that's in place. Software to enforce automatic updates, okay? If your team use mobile device, start locking it down with MDMs. Educate your employees again. Educate your employees and how to use their endpoint devices. Very crucial, right? So, I mean, all these things we talk about security. I've done a lot of security stuff, and I didn't really, when I thought about doing my podcast initially to drive traffic and create trust, I never thought that I was going to be doing this much security stuff. But over the last couple of months, I've seen a lot of situations that could be avoidable if these things were addressed or people knew about them. So that's kind of why I'm spending so much time on it. And I'm gonna go with the podcast where I think I need to go, even though initially that's not what I thought I was going to be talking about. I thought I was going to talk about network design and that kind of stuff. But if I need to talk about security because that seems to be a problem, I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna go with the flow as far as what topics to talk about. But this seems to be a problem, and so I'm addressing this problem. And like I said, you're doing your own thing, and you have your business, and you have your own responsibilities, taking care of your customers. So really, truly, this really shouldn't be something that you're really bogged down with. You want a team that's dedicated to your IT infrastructure in your business. You really shouldn't be doing this as a business owner. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. And again, if you have the time and you're computer savvy and you wanna do this on the side, that's fine. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying you can't do it. I just think it would be advantageous for you to bring someone in or have a contract with MSP, have them handle this. Because again, like I said, in life there's no solution, no trade-off. If you're doing this, you're not doing your main job, right? So pay them the money, right, and have them handle this, and you can focus on your main job, right? I completely understand the mindset of, and this is why I have a hard time with sales, because you're really paying for something that didn't happen yet. But the reason why normally I wouldn't care or advocate for this, because I'm stingy also, and I'm like, well, it's not a problem, right? But with this thing, it's just too costly if something goes wrong. That's why I'm kind of like harping on this. It's too costly. It's just too costly. If you don't have something in place, you don't have a plan. If you crash, you go down, your business, literally one thing can happen and your business just goes out of business because something happened. So based on that as and again, it's not like the salespeople that normally would do the point of, what they call it, they used to call it, what the point of PN. I think that's what they use. And I really hate it. It's like a scare tactic. It doesn't have to be scary. Again, if you take the time out to learn this stuff, put this stuff in place, and manage the thing yourself, that's fine. But if your business requires a lot of you to focus on the actual operation of the business, by all means, get a IT guy in or get a MSP in to handle this stuff. Do your research. Some MSP are ridiculous with the price. I get it, and just a lot of money. That's fine, but have something in place, please, because it's just too costly, right? We here at Ali's Custom Tech do this, right? You want to reach out to me, email me, visit my website if you want to do your due diligence to see if I'm somebody who I don't want to work with. You can Google MSPs in your areas. You can get one of those guys in your area. Do a couple of interviews with some of them, see how their prices, how they approach things. Just have somebody helping you with this, because this is a lot, and it's a lot for one person to handle, I think. And you have a business to manage. So just have something in place so that you get help. Okay, so like I always say, stay protected, stay productive, right, and keep acting on tech.